episode of the Discovery Pod with Eve. I am Eve Richards, and we've got an actor, a very prominent actor who was on a very popular show on ABC. He was the little mischievous brother with the dimples. More on him a bit later, but he's such an inspiration. But bringing someone who is so inspirational, he continues to help so many people. So we're definitely looking forward to speaking with him today. So please watch us on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, or you could listen to us on iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, or wherever podcast is available. Thank you again, all of you, for watching, supporting us. I'm joined today by my friend, Melissa Neesmith. She's an actress. She's been in quite a few things. She actually has a movie coming up very soon, a feature called The Dream. We'll talk more about that a little later. So, Melissa, so good to see you. It's good to be with you today. You know, one of the things that I was thinking about throughout the season and what I learned is we've been taking acting classes for quite a few years with a very renowned teacher. But what really bothered me was when I reached out to this teacher once, just to tell him about the premiere of the episode, and wanted to see if he could come, talk about the school, he's been acting since he was young. He never responded. Then there was the lunch party. I sent him a message as well. He never responded. So I'm thinking, I want to go back, but give me your thoughts, because I know you used to be a student in this acting school. So how do you feel? What do you think I should do?
It's a difficult thing when you are a student and supporting a school, and you promote the school, and then once you need that support, they're not there to support you, and that's really disconcerting. It's a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
In that in that whole thing, the whole thing is about support.
Yes.
It's a big support system, and cheerleader, and I've seen that school be big advocates and cheerleaders for their students.
Yes.
And it's when it came to this whole thing here, it feels like they kind of dropped the ball.
Yeah.
So for that, I can understand how you're feeling.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn. I don't know what to do, but I wanted to put it out there. I mean, there are wonderful people in that school who've been very supportive.
Absolutely.
And I've got to do a shout out to Alex Richardson, Alicia, right? Alicia has been amazing. Kiki has been amazing. Mary, all of them have been amazing. Jamie. So all of you, part of that community, thank you for your support. Melissa actually has a new project that she's working on called The Dream. What can you tell us about The Dream?
That's going to be a fun one. So we're still in production. We should be wrapping in May. So it's about the dark side of Hollywood. Instead of the glitz and glam, it's about what happens, when you have a dream and you fulfill that dream, but it tells you about all the dark sides of that dream that come along with it. It's not about all the glitz and glamour.
Incredible. So it's actually a good segue into our special guest today. What a way to end the season.
Yes, I'm so excited for
you
this.
remember him, right? Jeremy Miller. He played the young Ben Seaver on The Growing Pains.
Yes.
The show premiered on ABC on September 24th, 1985.
Oh my God.
Yes. Sorry to say, but he's still very young looking, okay, guys?
I know, he hasn't
It was
changed.
one of TV's first Modern Families, sitcom, right?
Yeah.
So, gosh, he's done a lot of stuff since he left The Growing Pains. I know he also talked about some of the struggles he's went through. Somehow he's been able to turn his life around, and he's been helping lots of people. Oh, and when he's not in front of the camera, did you guys actually know he's a chef? He actually cooked for the Black Eyed Peas. So if you've got an event, he's available. You got to reach him on, his
Instagram
or Facebook and all of that
Yes.
stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, without a doubt, without further ado, welcome Jeremy.
Yes.
So glad to have you
So
here with
excited
us.
to
Hey
have
guys,
you.
thank you for having me on.
Yes. So excited. Okay, so tell me, when you first auditioned for the role of Ben, how was that? How did that go?
My first audition went really well, but it was a cattle call. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that term, but it's basically just a call for an interview where everybody comes. Wow. They basically, anybody who possibly fits that age range, usually you're talking about 300 to 500 kids coming through in a 3 or 4 day period. It's a pretty hectic schedule. I don't recall ever really reading the lines in the interview. I went in and just started being a kid, and it wasn't planned. I went in and started telling jokes and, doing impressions and doing whatever. And the producers said that was what got me the role.
Okay.
It wasn't that I was the best little actor they had ever seen. It was that I was a real kid and that I could make that translate on camera.
Oh, wow. Do you remember how many kids you went up against?
At least 300 in the first
kids.
auditions.
Oh, wow. And how many auditions did you have to go through?
I went through, I think, 4 auditions, including the screen test.
Oh, gosh.
And at that point, I had been getting a lot of success on, I'd been doing bit parts on every 80s show at that point.
Wow.
I mean, Punky Brewster, Different Strokes, Charles in Charge, Pryor's Place, which a lot of people don't
Pryor's
remember.
Place.
It was a Sid and Marty Krofft show that he had done with Richard Pryor for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't associate Richard Pryor with kids, but it was a kids variety show kind of a thing. He had all these incredible guests, and so it was just I was really starting to book a lot at that point.
Wow!
And I booked both Growing Pains and another show called Fathers and Sons.
Wow!
They were both set to start the same year. One was NBC, one was ABC. Fathers and Sons was headed by Merlin Olsen.
Okay.
And it had kind of the bigger name behind it. NBC was the stronger network at the time. And my agents, every person involved with us wanted me to take Fathers and Sons.
Wow.
They believed that was the better option. For some reason, my mother and my grandmother just had a feeling. They were the only reason we accepted Growing Pains over Fathers and Sons. Is my grandmother and my mother just had this feeling that this was what we needed to do.
Okay. Wow.
And the rest is history. Fathers and Sons, my friend Andre Gower got it.
Andre!
An old friend of mine that I go back many years with.
Monster Squad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Which he beat me out for.
No! Oh, my God.
I was so ticked at him for that one. I wanted to do Monster Squad so bad.
That's an awesome movie.
So when people look at you, you're this cute little kid, and you're still cute, if I could use that terminology, with the dimples and all of that. But you dealt with a lot of insecurities as a child, right?
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that? Just because, I love what you've done and what you continue to do, helping others. So tell us about what
I dealt with an anxiety disorder from a very young age. To give you an example, I threw up before every live taping we did.
Wow.
I mean, we did 170 some odd live, shows over 7 years. And before the live taping, I would go on a walk. I would try and gather myself, and I would get so anxious and so upset that I would throw up before everyone. But it was something you just kind of learned to push through. And the working part of it was easier because it was my job. It was what I was expected to do. Yeah. Even though I'd been doing I was very young, I knew I had to carry myself as a professional. I had a job to get done. It was in the social aspects that the anxiety really got difficult and started to rear its head. Especially being a celebrity on a major show.
And a young kid.
We were going to, we had massive gala after gala and event and promotion and things like this that I had to be at all the time, and they were just very, very overwhelming.
Wow.
And your
stepdad, right?
My step idiot at the time was that's the nicest thing I can say. Wow. Was a big cause of a lot of my anxiety as well. He was a very abusive man, mentally, physically, sexually. You name it. He was a real piece of work. Oh, no. And that added to the anxieties. And he ran me pretty ragged as my PR manager. So there was probably a 3-year period where I wasn't home on a weekend.
Wow.
And I'm under 14 years old. I was probably 11 to 14.
Oh my God.
I would get done with work on Friday, head to the airport, fly to wherever, fly to this city, fly to that city, fly to this city, come back Sunday night. By the way, doing my homework on the plane and and then get back Sunday night, go back to work on Monday morning.
My goodness.
So it wasn't until I was almost 14 and a half that I finally put my foot down and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And he said, well, yeah, you are. I said, well, you know what? You work for me and I'm emancipated at this point. So guess what? I'm not. And I kind of had to set my boundaries and put my foot down.
That's scary.
Let's go into that because you said you were emancipated and you were emancipated at age 15, correct?
At age 15,
okay.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, again, I had a wonderful accountant who did not pay my state taxes for 7 years and took that money that was supposed to be going to that and pocketed it essentially. So after 7 years, we found out that I owed the state of California hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and penalties and back taxes and all that. And the California State Franchise Tax Board does not play around.
Yeah.
They make the IRS look like kindergartners.
Wow.
So they basically told me that if I could pay the money or my mom could go to prison.
I read that.
That was it. It was my mom was going to prison or I was going to pay the money. So I had to get emancipated so that I could get access to my Coogan account before I was 18. And pretty much my whole Coogan account went towards paying, paying the government.
Is the Coogan law, do you think it's effective, though?
I think the Coogan law is very effective.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I honestly think we need it to be, it needs to be the law of the land.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's only effective in 5 states. Oh. There are only 5 states where you have to put the money away.
Oh. Wow.
So
only 5.
That's a problem.
Out of 50.
Yeah, that's a problem. We've got 5, and now especially with them filming in so many different states, kids are not protected in a lot of those other states. That's one of the reasons they choose those states.
Yeah.
Because they know they can work the kids insane hours. They know that the protections that are in place for us in places where this has been the norm are not there in the other, in the other states.
Wow.
So we
That's
need
scary.
to get that to be a law of the land across the board, a national, issue. But no, I do believe the Coogan account is very effective. Things can go wrong again. But had I not had the issues I had with my accountant, but when I turned 18, I would have had a very significant chunk of money to, start my life with and to get things going with. So I do believe it's effective. I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you do get a lot of parents who aren't looking out for the kids. It does happen. I was not one of those.
Good.
My mother was extremely protective about my finances and stuff like that. So, it's a tough situation. It really is. But you work your way through it. I had enough money to put myself through school for a little bit. I went to USC for a year. I had to stop. My mom needed help back at home, so I went back to work. But it also put me through culinary school and, helped me raise my family and stuff. So it wasn't all bad.
Your story is incredible. There are so many people out there who are going to benefit from this interview just because you were able to turn your life around. From such a young age, from what I read, you got into alcohol. You started drinking at age 4. And you've had, the problems with the alcohol. And tell us a little bit about that and the success story.
Well, I'm definitely a full-blown alcoholic. Given in recovery for many years now. But I grew up in a house of traditional 70s drinkers. I grew up with my grandparents. And they were, traditional 70s alcoholics. They were responsible. They got their job done. They never missed a day of work. They never missed a bill. But you could bet by 5:05 they were in their bar stool at their favorite bar when they got off of work. It was a very kind of traditional, normal thing back then. So in my house, drinking was normal. My mother, who barely ever drank, who's the type who has half a daiquiri and goes, whoo, I'm like, hey, I better stop. She's the oddball in our family on that side of the family. So 4.5 years old or so, I would run around my grandparents' parties after the party was over and finish off all the beers.
Did you know what you were doing at that age? Like, did you know what you were drinking?
I don't know if I knew what I was drinking, but I will tell you this, most kids do that and they go, oh, or it makes them dizzy or it makes them whatever. And they're like, oh, they have a kind of negative reaction.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Wow.
The only thing that stopped me from doing it was maybe, 6 months, 7 months. I don't know how many parties I had done this at. I came across a butt can.
Oh, there you go. I was just going to ask that question.
That cured me of my beer drinking for a very long time because it was bad.
Congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you. It took a very long time. I mean, I went through a lot, and the social lubricant aspect of the alcohol was a big thing for me.
Especially in the industry.
In the industry, well, I was carrying a flask by the time I was, 17. So that when I went to these events, I had something that I could back off to the side and just calm myself down a little. And it worked until it didn't.
Yeah.
That's always the case. It was a very effective tool for helping with me get through these things until it wasn't. And once that corner turned, it doesn't go the other way again.
Right.
It really doesn't. So my drinking started getting really out of control. I met my fiance in New Orleans while filming the second reunion movie.
Joni.
Yes. We met in New Orleans, so when she met me, I was drinking. But we were in New Orleans.
Right.
Yes.
Everybody's drinking, so it didn't seem that out of the ordinary. Yeah. But we did long distance for a while, and she started noticing things and started making comments, but I hadn't started and turned into the absolute ass that I was, later on when I really was drinking. And, it just, things get bad quick.
Yeah.
Once you cross that line, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, once you cross that line, things go downhill really rapidly.
Right.
So I started struggling pretty bad. And, I knew I needed help.
You talked about 2 incidents at a wedding in Texas.
Yes.
And the reunion with your cast in Montreal.
Now, in Montreal, I didn't drink very much. Okay. That was in 2000, and things hadn't gotten really out of control. I was still very much like my grandparents. I got my job done, and then afterwards, I was at the bar, I was at a restaurant having drinks most of the night, but never late for work on set, never anything, I was getting things done. But by the time we got to New Orleans, and it's in the middle of Mardi Gras, I held it together for about the first 3 weeks, where my drinking was only afterwards. The last 3 to 4 weeks of shooting, I was showing up on set with one of the supersize alcoholic Slurpees they sell on every corner out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm talking 9 a.m. I've already hit there, grabbed a giant one, and I'm sitting in the makeup chair at 9:30 in the morning, sipping on my thing. And so things had gotten pretty bad.
Yeah. Gosh. I know, because we had discussed that a couple
Oh, yeah. I was not a pleasant person to be around when I was drinking. Right. And I was never physically abusive, but I was a very verbally abusive person. I was a very angry person. I was filled with a lot of rage. And unfortunately, Joni and my boys got the brunt of a lot of that verbally.
Yeah.
Wow. You're lucky. She's still here with you.
I am a blessed man that she saw something, enough in me to keep fighting for.
Yeah.
And that's all you need. That's support.
It kept me fighting. It kept me fighting.
Wow.
It may not have been working all the time. I mean, I may have been fighting a losing battle for a long time, but I kept fighting.
Yeah,
amazing.
Absolutely.
So
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Joni's amazing. She's an amazing
She is
lady.
pretty special.
Amazing. I mean, one of the things, so you have 3 stepsons, right?
I don't call them stepsons. Those are my boys.
Those are your boys.
I raised them for 13 years before they started leaving the house.
So, I mean, obviously you had this abusive stepdad and all of that. What advice would you give to any parent who has a child who wants to get into the acting?
Honestly, I've always said, like in reference to my own kids, if they wanted to get into it, if it was what they were really passionate about and they wanted it, it's they wanted to do plays, they just lived and loved acting and drama, then I would have to support it.
Nice.
But
yeah.
I'll give you an example. My oldest son was playing football, and he was a very, very good football player. And he came to me one day. He said, "Dad, I think I may want to give this, acting thing a try." He was probably about 16. Mm-hmm. And I sat him down. And I said, "Okay, well, let me explain to you what your life is going to look like." Mm-hmm. I said, "You're going to get done with school. There will be no football practice because you're going to have auditions." Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pick you up, or your mom's going to pick you up. You're going to do your homework in the car. We're going to drive you around in Hollywood all day to your auditions. Then we're going to bring you home. You're going to finish your homework, eat dinner, go to bed, and rinse and repeat every day for the next. You're not going to have time on the weekends with your friends. You're not. And he sat there for about 2 minutes and went, I think I'm going to stick with football. So it's probably a smart move.
Is he still playing football?
No, he had to give up football. Had a pretty nasty concussion. His sophomore year. So we, and thankfully he didn't fight us on it. As much as he loved football, we told him, you get even one more ding and you're done. And he got dinged up in practice a few weeks later, and he came and told us. He was like, I got my bell rung again. I think I should probably stop.
Yeah, not good.
He noticed it was affecting his vision, things like that. So I personally, I had about as good of an experience as you can have as a child actor. Right. And that's with all the drama we've already talked about. Taken advantage of by, being around pedophiles, unfortunately, all that kind of stuff. I never had anything happen to me. My abuse happened, with a family member. It wasn't on set stuff. I was very protected on set. But that's not the story most of my friends who've been in this business have.
Wow.
They don't have the good experiences I had. So unless a kid, you can tell this is their dream, they will settle for nothing else. I'd try and get them involved in anything but, show business, just because it's incredibly difficult.
It is difficult.
It can be incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to be present 24/7, you're probably setting your child up for some sort of trauma.
Right.
I don't blame Hollywood for this. Everybody wants to, it's filled with no, it's not. Okay, there are going to be predators in any environment where you have children who are lightly supervised.
Yeah.
Look at the gymnastics scandals. Yes. Look at any sports. Yeah. And I hate to go this way, but churches and anywhere where children, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, where children are being put in the hands of adults that are not you.
Yeah.
It's gonna attract predators. Any scene like that, any environment like that will attract predators. So I was very lucky. Again, I had people on set with me. I had people looking out for me at all times.
So what was it like? We're gonna kind of steer over here for fun stuff, and then I want to get back to this because it is important. But you did get to work with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Absolutely.
How was that growing up with him, and are you still friends?
Leo and I only got about a couple of months together.
Really?
He did 6 episodes of Growing Pains before he got This Boy's Life, the De Niro film.
Yeah.
Our producers released him from his contract so he could go do that. Which they didn't need to do, but it is pretty common practice when you have a guest actor on a show who gets something else. It's kind of common courtesy to release them from the contract. I was in the school trailer with him when he got the call from his agent, and he just went berserk. He jumped into my arms. I'm standing there in the trailer with him like this, and he's going, "I got the De Niro film." So it was really cool. And Leo was an awesome guy. We kind of hit it off right away because we were similar age. He's only a little bit older than me. So we palled around on set and stuff, and early on I helped him just kind of run lines and things like that. But we were as close as you could be without. We'd only known each other a couple of months at that point. We've stayed in touch a little bit. We don't talk on the phone all the time. We don't anything like that. If I see Leo, he'll run up and give me a big hug, or I'll run up and give him a big hug. But he's not an everyday part of my life.
Yeah.
Sure.
So one thing before we jump into something fun. In previous interview, you talked about Rebecca, your friend. You know, she was an actress. She filmed next to
Rebecca
Growing
Schaefer.
Pains.
Yeah.
She was killed by a stalker, and you actually had one. How could we protect kids
Or
in
people.
the industry, or people generally, and
In the
film
industry.
sets, right?
This
From
gets
such-
gets into the political side of it. You know, this is where cities need to enact more laws and take it more seriously.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, at the moment, we have governors across the country repealing stalking laws, and it's just atrocious. Rebecca Schaefer's case was what brought 90% of the stalking laws we have in
Wow.
California into the courts. She had to die for that to happen.
Yes, yeah.
There was no protection.
Yeah.
I mean, we showed up on set on Monday morning and she just wasn't there. Their whole crew is there waiting, you know, and she just never showed up.
Yeah.
That just gives me chills.
It
On a
was
Monday.
on a Monday morning. I mean, it was horrific. And it was just a stalker who was able to track down her address and wait for her and assaulted her on her doorstep.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really horrific.
And for those who don't know, she was on the show My Sister Sam.
Yes.
Back in the day with Pam Dauber, and
It was a very big
great
show. Yeah, it was a great
It was
show.
an amazing show.
A lot of fun.
That was very
and
shocking to hear.
Working
Yeah.
next door to them was an honor.
Yeah.
Because Pam Dauber was a legend even at
Yes.
that
Yes.
point.
Yes, she was.
And the rest of the cast and crew were so talented, and Rebecca was just so sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, she was considerably older than me at that time, but
Yeah.
we knew each other. Our trailers were within walking distance of each other. We'd see each other going back and forth from set. We'd talk all the time.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that people don't take that stuff seriously until something like this happens. I mean, we've been having it for years. I mean, Kirk was followed home from the. There was a period of 2 years where he had to have a sheriff's escort
Oh, my
to and from
God.
work because he had people driving him off the road to get a picture with him.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So
He
it's
had-
almost like the Princess Diana type.
It
thing where
was
they're-
crazy.
yeah.
It was crazy stuff. And
Wow.
again, there was no protection.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, the sheriffs agreed to give him an escort on the way home and to work, but there was no law in place to give him any help. There was nothing there to protect him from
How
that.
sad.
And it's sad because you can look up people's addresses on Google. It's amazing how many people's addresses will come up.
The
Yeah.
amount of info you can get online now is scary.
It's scary.
Yes,
It
and
really
you don't
is.
have to have a private investigator to
Yeah.
find it anymore.
Well-
Google, that's all you have to do.
Candace Cameron Kirk's little
Yeah.
sister just moved her family out of California.
Okay.
And not because it wasn't any big, got to get out of California. It was, we don't feel safe here
Yeah.
because of the stalkers, the paparazzi,
Yeah.
she didn't want to live in a gated community.
Yep.
She lived in a regular, normal cul-de-sac
Yeah.
type
Okay.
street.
Yeah.
Well, there's only so many times you can have some weird guy showing up in your front lawn
yeah.
or your backyard.
Oh.
Scary.
Or, I mean, let's talk about my friends who do soap operas.
Yeah.
They wake up and walk into their bathroom and there's someone in their shower waiting for them.
That's scary. Oh my God.
Okay, that's not, I mean, I'm talking, and that's not rare. I
Yeah.
mean, that's like a regular story my friends who've been on soaps have.
Wow. So we're going to pivot and go into something
Oh my
fun.
gosh.
So tell us about your book with Dr. Brendan Phillips.
Oh, yes.
So I was privileged to write a book with my very, very dear friend, Dr. Brandon Phillips. Brandon was a wish kid.
Oh.
He was granted a wish by the Starlight Foundation because he had a heart condition. He was born with it. He was not supposed to live to see 21 years old. 22 maybe at best.
Wow.
And when he was about 10 years old, he was granted a wish by the Starlight Foundation when they still did that. Thankfully, they got smart and realized that them and Make-A-Wish were competing for the same things and went, no, we're going to do something else and help in another way. But they granted him his wish, and he was the only kid who came to the set to meet me.
Wow.
That's
That was his wish. Out of everything he could have had, he wanted to come and meet me, and it was just such an amazing honor. And I just set out mentally, even as a kid, I was like, this is really special. I'm gonna make sure this kid has just the best day he can possibly have.
Were you guys the same age?
I was about a year older, year and a half older.
Okay.
And I took him, we borrowed the Grips golf carts and went zipping all around the lot and gave them a tour of all the different, because we were on the Burbank Ranch. We had the Fantasy Island set. We had the Old West sets they used to film at. We had the barn from Friday the 13th. We had all this cool stuff. So him and I we were jumping out of the barn into the hay, and we're riding bikes all over. We had a really, really great time, and we formed a friendship.
Nice.
We kept in contact for years afterwards, just through letters and stuff.
Wow.
And we lost contact probably around high school. Right when things were getting real rough for me with my anxiety, and the drinking was really kicking up, and he was starting his college and starting to look at medical school. So we just kind of went in different directions.
Nice.
And we met back up at the same time I met my Joni. He was at Tulane Medical in New Orleans, finishing his medical school.
He was meant to be.
Right when we were filming.
Oh my gosh.
So through another set of circumstances, him and Kirk had reconnected, and he had helped Kirk's family find a place to rent while they were out there filming.
Oh, okay.
So all of a sudden, we're on set one day, and Kirk goes, "Oh, come here! I need you to meet somebody." He drags me around the corner. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know if you," and he didn't even get the words out any further. I saw him, and I went, "Brandon Phillips."
Oh, wow.
And this is not my best moment. The next words out of my mouth were, "How in the hell are you still alive?"
Oh my God.
He meant it in the best way.
I meant it in the best way possible, but I was just stunned because he was not supposed to have lived.
Yeah.
And it turns out.
How old was he by then?
By then, okay, so when we were in New Orleans, I was 27. He would have been 25, 26.
Wow.
And the procedure he had was cutting edge. It was completely. It was nobody had ever even heard of that kind of procedure when he had it. It's now so commonplace that his disorder has been taken off the terminal list.
So is he okay?
That's awesome.
He's fine. He's had 2 valve replacements since the original. That's just something with valve replacements you have to do over time as your heart grows.
Wow.
He will have to have another one probably in the next 10 to 15 years.
So what's your book about?
It's really about our friendship. I mean, if I could sum it up, it's really just trying to get across to people how God is always working in our lives, even when we don't see it. Because that really is, if you look at Brandon's and my stories and the weird way our lives parallel each other, you're talking about a kid from small town Gina, Louisiana, just got a stoplight 10 years ago kind of place.
Wow.
I mean, and then me, Hollywood kid, and everything. But our lives paralleled each other in the weirdest ways. And then right when we needed each other most, God just put us right down in each other's lives again.
I so believe in the universe.
And you see these patterns throughout both of our stories.
Wow.
So we wanted to connect it. And we had... Just every time we shared the story of us, of our friendship and us getting together and how we've helped each other, everybody kept saying, "You have to put this on paper. You have to put this on paper." So we finally sat down. We got a wonderful, wonderful writer to help us put it all together and do all the interviewing. It took about 4 years to get everything right, to get it through legal, because we wanted to be as honest as possible. As you guys can see, I'm an open book. So
that's great, though.
We wanted it to be as honest as possible.
You're helping so many people.
That's what that's the only way you can do it. If you want to help people, you got to be as honest as you can, and you got to just bear as much of it as you can.
But you know what? The perception that people have is you're this star, this kid who is this with a dimple. Well, no one knows the backstory,
and
right?
we've gotten even more of that now because of social media.
Yeah.
Now it's all about the image you're trying to portray. Keeping your brand. All that. I can't afford to do that with what I'm trying to do.
Right.
I really can't. I got to be me, and I got to be as open as possible if I want to try and reach as many people as I can.
See, and that was the thing, because we went out to dinner, my husband, Jeremy, and Joni the other night.
Oh my goodness, what a wonderful,
it was amazing.
What a wonderful night.
And the thing is, we were talking about all this, and I have a friend in Washington that is become a serious alcoholic, and he knows this, and he acknowledges this.
Yeah.
But he worries me to great extent. And I was talking to Jeremy about it, and it was to the point to where he's like, you know what? give him my number if he wants to talk. And it's like, you don't find that very often.
That
and
authenticity,
yes,
the real, being real, want to connect with.
Exactly.
Because
so
it's like people want to push you, like, I don't want.
No, he was like, tell him to call me.
That's incredible, Jeremy. You're amazing. I'm going to talk about something fun as well. Tell us about your cooking and cooking for the Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, I love to cook.
Amazing.
My grandmother was a self-trained cook, and her love language was food. That's how she expressed her love for the family and for everybody.
Been the one who came and did all the catering for the party.
next party.
I just had something last week. If I had known, only you didn't tell me about that. Seriously,
no, because we want him to attend. We don't want him to work.
I know. His team would have been doing the work, right?
No, I actually do most of it. I don't really have a team. I do most of my own cooking.
Oh my gosh.
I try and keep parties to 50 people or less.
It was less.
30.
It was less.
That's the kind of parties I handle.
And it was very intimate.
But I just learned to love food. My grandmother at every New Year's, every Thanksgiving, and every Easter, my grandmother would cook for the neighborhood and the family, and she would open up her house to anybody in the neighborhood who didn't have somewhere to be or anybody to be with during those holidays. Wow. And that included the local homeless population in our area. They knew they could come to my grandma's and get a plate. And they were very respectful.
I just love that story.
So
it just warms my heart.
That's where where I learnned to love to cook and to love to cook for people. I don't like cooking for me. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like most chefs. I'll throw something frozen in the microwave. I don't care about cooking for me.
Yeah.
But if I'm cooking for other people, you can bet I'm going to be going all out. I love it.
Who cooks at home?
I do. Joni claims to have forgotten how to cook conveniently.
You got to come to Eve's because she does have a cooking kitchen.
Ooh, I would love it. I would love it.
I really do, and I love to cook as well. But he's gonna have to cook, right?
Yes, absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Your story is incredible. Just reading about you and all the people you're helping, the outreach to homelessness, and how do you do it?
I'm a bit of a bleeding heart, I guess, when it comes to that stuff. I can't see a problem like that and not try and do something.
You want to make
if
a
I
difference.
Can. And it's a small difference, but at least it's a difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
I was very privileged.
It's huge.
I was very privileged when I was young to get to work with some wonderful homeless activists. At the time, John Voight, Valerie Harper, Angelica Houston, Raul Julia. I mean, just some heavyweights. And they were the people that taught me to care.
Wow.
We marched on Washington together. I'm only 9 years old, and we're marching for homelessness. And I got to work with an amazing man named Mitch Schneider, who has a very complicated history, but he was the homeless man who basically staged a hunger strike against Reagan when Reagan was cutting all the budgets from the VA and for the homeless shelters for the soldiers. And he did 55 days with no food and no nothing, just water and vitamins.
Oh my gosh.
Until the Reagan administration agreed to put the funding back in.
Wow.
So he was taken to the hospital, and he was there for 1 day and found out that the Reagan administration had reneged on everything. He checked himself out of the hospital and did another 27 days chained to the tree across from the White House.
Oh my gosh.
He was an amazing man. He had a lot of problems. He is a very complicated man, but these are the people I learned from at a young age. These are the people who taught me to care.
Right.
So if that's the role models I had, then
That's amazing.
I have to do the small amount that I can.
And also your dad on the show, your second dad.
Alan. Alan was just the most giving, wonderful, generous human being in the world. I mean, he in 40 plus years now, because we started the show when I was 8 years old.
Gosh.
I'm turning 48 this year, so
You don't look it though. You're still the little.
I know he has not
with,
changed.
Yeah,
at
with
all.
the dimples.
At all.
Yes, like
He looks the same.
you do.
thank you. But in 40 years, I've had one person with one slightly negative thing to say about their interaction with Alan.
Wow.
And that Alan apparently was having a bad day and blew him off for an autograph or something like that.
Which is normal,
But again,
right?
in
It
one person in 40 years, I mean, that's the kind of man he was. He was just incredibly generous with his time, he was just a warm, loving man.
So I heard, didn't he? What was it that you said, Eve? That he wouldn't he ad lib a lot on set?
Yes, he talked about
Alan
it.
was notorious for ad libbing, but honestly, he was not the worst.
Oh,
It was someone.
Tim Allen was the worst.
I was about to say, okay, Tim
My buddies were the kids.
Yes.
No, my buddies were the kids on Home Improvement. So Taryn and Jonathan. And they were friends of mine. So I would go and watch them. I'd watch some of their filmings. I'd come to their actual cast taping sometimes and just support them. But watching them try and remember their lines when Tim's just making up it as he goes along, these poor kids are waiting for their cue and he gets done.
And the writers.
And they're just sitting there.
like,
And everybody's waiting for them to say their line and they don't know it's their turn.
Oh, no.
So Tim actually got better about that. And if he was going to improvise, he kind of told them what he was doing and stuff like that. Alan only injected those every so often. His stuff was more as soon as they said cut. Alan turned it on. That was when the jokes started rolling, or he'd just break out into song, or he'd, any number of things he would be running off to the phone to do another business deal. Okay. Alan was Mr. Multi-talented.
Wow.
Singer, writer, director, actor, producer, played 5 instruments,
Incredible.
It was amazing.
so Robin took after his dad a lot.
Oh, big him and Gloria. I mean, his mom as well, beautiful singer, an amazing musician, but if you looked at the back of any of Alan's scripts, they would be filled with phone numbers and his scribbles of what that phone number was related, what project, what next thing. Alan was always go, 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 go. If you couldn't find Alan for the shot, they would grab the PA and go to the phones and drag him off the phone.
What a better second parent to have. So what are you currently working on, or what other projects are there that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I have, there's a new show that I believe is going to be released on BET. That is where it premiered, and I believe it will be continuing on there. It's called Angel. I play a detective.
Wonderful.
I'm the partner of the lead detective in the show. Sweet. And it's a lot of fun. I've done 2 episodes now. We'll be shooting episode 5 in another month or so.
Amazing.
And so I'm doing that. I'm tied into 3 films right now that are trying to get their financing back after the strike, but are making really good progress and are very close. 2 of them are horror films, and one of them is a kind of romantic drama.
Congratulations. Sending good vibes your way. So we're down to the 3-minute mark. And the final question that we usually ask is, if you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Robin Williams, without a doubt.
Ooh, good one.
Williams, yeah.
Winston Churchill.
Ooh, I like that one.
That's the same. Okay.
Yeah.
And probably Gandhi.
Ooh, those are awesome.
Incredible.
All for very different reasons.
Yeah?
They're very different questions. I'd love to be able to ask all of them. And for me, most importantly, would be Robin, and I'd want to talk about some of those demons and what he was dealing with, and see if I could,
Gosh, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me.
Your journey is so inspiring. I'm so glad you are the last guest of the season.
Right? Thank you so much.
And what an inspiration you are. Folks, make sure you follow Jeremy at...
Mr. Jeremy James Miller on Facebook and The Real Jeremy Miller on Instagram.
And remember, he's a chef, so he's available if you have any events. Jeremy, you're an inspiration to all of us.
Yes.
Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you in season 2 when you're promoting all of your new shows.
Yes.
Let me know. I'd love to be back.
And his
Of
book,
course, and your books and everything.
When I Wished Upon a Star is his book.
Oh,
Yes.
And where can people...
It's When I Wished Upon a Star, and you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any of the places you get books. Also, it is available on audiobook now with a wonderful actor who did the audio for us.
Fabulous.
What an incredible interview with the young Ben Seaver. And he still has those dimples. So, folks, you got to watch this episode.
Yes, absolutely.
What an inspirational interview, right?
Because he's an amazing guy.
He is incredible.
Joni helps with that.
Of course. Oh, Melissa, this has been so
He's
much
so
fun.
Inspirational, definitely.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you for watching us on the Discovery Pod with Eve's YouTube channel, listening to us on iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, wherever podcast is available. Thanks to Roger Neal for executive producing the show. A big thank you to Tony Sweet and his team for working on all the production of all of this episodes. So everyone, thanks again for joining. Tony, Blas, Melissa, bye everyone.
Bye.
And thank you, Jeremy, for coming. What an inspirational interview. Thanks everyone. Roger.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.